So my friends, this is a recap video. This is a touching base, if you will, of the Steeldive SD1958. I've had this watch a few weeks now. I did a first impressions video and I've left it a bit longer this time, so I've had more time to contemplate and think and look at it back again with fresh eyes and to think about it a bit more, so I can give you maybe a slightly different take on what I initially may have thought. Because sometimes when we buy a watch, the initial sort of novelty period, that is always the initial sort of bit of excitement if you're happy with the watch. That's always good. It's really bad when you get an initial thing when it's disappointing. But hopefully when you watch these kind of reviews that we like to share with you guys, it gives you that less risk of when you first open that watch out of its box. You shouldn't have that disappointment, because we try and help you through that first difficult phase of taking the risk out of it, if you will. We take the risk on and share our findings with you. And this watch, my initial impression was good. And now I'm going to see if that's changed, because that's something that is another thing you can consider. And there's always that novelty period. You want something that's going to last you a bit longer sometimes. And is this one of those watches that is going to stick with the collection? So let's delve in and take a look. I'll see you in a minute. So if you haven't seen the first video, first of all, I just need to disclaimer, my thumb is okay. I know it looks horrific, but I was cutting a tennis ball to do something with it. I won't go into detail, it's to do with work. And I slipped and cut my thumb very badly. Not bad enough to need anything else other than a really good bandage and some band-aids on there. But yeah, it's pretty gnarly, so I do apologise. But I don't want to cover it up because I think it looks quite gnarly, and it goes in with the whole Steeldive look, because I'm a tough guy, you know. I was going to man up and struggle on. Anyway, I digress massively, as I often do. This is the packaging you get. So when it comes all the way from overseas, it's well padded, really well secured. And if you buy this from who I kindly got lent this from, steeldivuk.com, they lent me this watch. So thanks so much to those guys for lending me this watch. I really appreciate it. It helps the channel because it means I don't have to keep pumping so much money into buying watches all the time. So thanks for lending me this. As soon as I've done this, I'll be posting it back to you. And I'll be sending it back the way you sent it to me. And that was in a lovely box with loads of these things. These are fantastic. So you know it's going to be well protected when you buy your watch from there. So I'm going to open it up and show you what will be inside if you got one of these. Now here's the watch itself. It's beautiful. It's in a bag and it's also wrapped just around this part with a nice thick strong bit of plastic, so there's no scratches in transit. A nice little tag, which is really nice, and an unfilled in card. But you do get buyer protection when you buy from the UK if you buy from Steeldive UK, so that's another bit of reassurance. You're going to get that bit of extra service. That's something I want to talk about sometimes more in my videos. Is there are sometimes risks with buying watches from China. You don't have that customer service sometimes, and you don't have that buyer protection that's going to be as speedy and as efficient as when you buy from the UK. So that's why it's good to be to get these kind of value watches in the UK. And I wish we could get more and more and more. Maybe I'll do it one day. Not Steeldive, I've got my ideas for other things, but it's a good way of saving other people the hassle and getting the watches closer to where you are. Cut out some of that waiting, some of that hassle, and we take on board, and the UK or any other supplier takes on board the customer service element to add into the mix, and that's what you're going to get. And that is something I value as a customer myself, and I hope that comes across for you guys as well. When you're thinking about buying these watches, it's nice to know you can buy a watch that's good value, but you also have got peace of mind at the same time if anything goes wrong. So what I'm going to do is start with what I often do, is the stats and the specs. So to assist me with this task today, if you've not seen any of my videos before, I have two loyal servants that assist me with this part of the job, and that is, I'll start with my good friend Gipas. Can you come over here please, Gipas? No, it's not actually a person, it's my weighing scales. So we need to know how heavy this watch is. So let's start with that. It's supplied on a nice rubber strap. This is a good solid, fairly stiff yet good quality rubber strap. So let's see how much this beastie weighs on that. So it's 117. So it's reasonably weighty. Often watches of this sort of size on a rubber strap are less than 100 grams. So that's to give you an indication of how heavy this watch is. You can imagine if it was on a steel bracelet, which you can't get this on, this SD1958. If it did, it would be probably in the 180, 190 gram category if you sized it up to a 7-inch wrist. That is my ballpark guesstimate to help you out if you do decide to buy an aftermarket bracelet for this watch. I think it suits and is very in keeping with a good quality rubber, and I'll be showing you a alternative strap you can put this on, which I think takes it to the next level. And that's something I'll be mentioning because I, as another thing alongside being a YouTuber, is I have a business which I'm growing, and I'm going to mention that now. Check out my store, Watch Me With Watches store. The link will always be in the description, so if you watch any of my other videos, it's easy to click on there and find my selection of straps. And I generally seem to focus on straps that suit more of the vintage style, and I do NATOs and things like that, and rubber for dive straps. And I find, in my experience over the years, they're the ones that sell well, and they sell well for a reason, because they're very versatile. And this watch is very versatile, and that's because after I've obviously discussed the weight, we're going to discuss the dimensions, and that adds into the versatility of this watch because it's a decent size. So we're going to start with the case dimension, which is just over 40, which for many is a really good sweet spot. Then we've got the thickness of the watch. The height, as some people might say, is quite thick at 15.1. I'd say that is very thick from what I'm used to. The lug to lug, which is the length of the watch, that is just under 50. So it's not too long, but it's just creeping into the quite long for a watch territory, if you know what I mean. And the lug width is 22, which is a good standard size for mini strap availability, so you could change it out. So that's the dimensions there. And then I'm going to mention, because it is so big, the crown, it's nearly 8mm. And I say 6mm and above is a sweet spot for ease of use. So when you get into the 8, that's almost borderline oversized crown, because it's such a nice size for using. But I'll discuss that a little bit later on. Now, the dial size, some people said that not enough people mentioned the dial size, and I think that's a really good point that they made, because the dial size is important. This is just over 31mm, so that is a standard sort of size. If you were into the modding scene, you could change this dial out. It's quite a universal size for changing out dials that fit onto what is the Seiko NH35 movement inside this model, as are in nearly every micro brand and small company watches out there. They often use the NH35 or Myotas. Again, very easy to change out these kind of parts. So the dimensions I've covered now. Now I'm going to move on to more the materials and those kind of specifications. So we'll start with the strap and work our way in. So the strap is a rubber. It's a good strong rubber. It's not silicone. The reason why I know is silicone has a more softer and more stretchy feeling to it, and almost a slightly sticky texture, and it can attract lint, but it's extremely soft and extremely comfortable to wear. This is a lot more robust and strong, a lot less stretch to it. I'd say this is probably an FKM or fluoro rubber, which is effectively a lot stronger and durable in terms of its finish, and it will pretty much look like this forever, this kind of rubber. And it's a good grade of rubber, and it's got good brushed hardware, but it's very wide. The buckle, that's worth you knowing. Look how wide this is. Its widest point, it's 33.4, and I measured this against, in a previous video, a marathon field watch, quartz field watch, and that had case size about 1mm shy of that. So, and I like that way that watch fits. So it just shows you how big that is in relation to almost any watch. Look how big it is even compared to this 41mm size watch. And it's got the Steeldive branding almost everywhere on it, on the buckle, on the keeps here, underneath. It's good. It's got good consistent branding, and same here on the logo there. That's good. So strap is quite good, but I don't like the design. I just don't like it, and there's a zero taper on it. It's dead straight 22 all the way down with a tiny bit of a taper at the end and squared off. Then we've got the case is all 316L stainless steel, lots of polished side to it. And then we've got, I'm going to adjust my light a bit, get some more brightness here. The bezel itself is stainless steel, and the insert is ceramic. And the ceramic bezel is also lumed. All the numbers there are lumed, and I'll show you the lume shot very soon. That'll be coming up. Then we've got the dial, is a nice matte black. Lots of lume in the indices and the hands. And it's got that lovely 12369 configuration with no date. And it's very symmetrical with the Steeldive just below the 12 and then automatic 200 above the 6. It's very consistent and neat with its layout. And it's very well proportioned, very neatly laid out, and everything lines up as it should do. So the glass is sapphire, a synthetic sapphire. I will do a video. Some people have been interested in finding out more about synthetic sapphire, how it's made. It's actually a crystal, and it's formed through very high temperatures. I think it's aluminium oxide. It's formed together and it's fused, and then it effectively melts together and forms clumps of sapphire crystal, and that is then diamond cut into whatever you want it to be, really. And it's used in many different ways, but it's, as we know, used very, very much so on watch crystals. And this one has got a lovely strong blue AR coating, and I understand that the blue aspect of an AR coating, the reason why it's that tinge, if you will, is to get clear AR is more expensive. So having this blue AR is a sign of you've got AR, but it's kind of entry-level AR. But I can deal with that because the blue of the AR matches the blue of the Lume, which, as I said earlier, you will get to see. So you've got really good specifications already. As I've said, ceramic, you've got sapphire with AR coating. We do have good Lume, and we have a decent Seiko NH35 movement, which if you've never heard of it before, I'm surprised, but it's a great movement. It's in lots of different watches, varying in value and price. They put it in things up to £500 or dollars, sometimes more. And they put it in watches which are entry level, even down as low as $40 to $50. They put that same movement in it. It's that versatile. It's reliable. It's proven generally to be extremely accurate. There's very minimal service requirements. It's kind of, just don't worry about it kind of movement. It hacks and it hand winds, and that's where I move on to the crown. It's lovely to use, easy to unwind crown. It hacks and it hand winds. The hand winding is when you unscrewed it from the first. If it's a screw down crown, you unscrewed it, and then the first point is hand winding. So 20 to 30 turns to give it a recharge. And then the next point now is ghost position, because this doesn't have a visible date wheel. It would be in there, but you can't see it because there's no cutout. And then one more click for the time adjust. Everything lines up, everything's so smooth to use. And then the re-screwing of the crown into the case is perfect, so easy. And while we're talking about the crown, it's lovely. It's got their logo on there, which is fantastic, as does the screw case back. And the way you'd undo this kind of case back, if you wanted to look at it, would be using a sticky ball. It's a squishy ball for case back removal. I bought mine on eBay for about £2 or £3. You pump it, they come totally flat. You pump it up with a bicycle pump till it's half full of air. It's nice and squishy, and it's quite tacky. And you basically squeeze it against it and turn and undo the back. That's how you would, it's just a nerdy fact to help you guys out to say, how on earth would you undo that back? That's how you do it. If you want to see me do that, actually, I've just did recently a mod video where it had it was a caddishan, and the back was screwed the same way as this, and that's how I did it. So the bezel, I've discussed that, but I'm going to show you now how many clicks it has. 120. It's unidirectional, so it only goes one way, and that's the way it's turning now. It's got a really nice bezel action. It's not too light, not too heavy. It feels reassuring. It feels like it's been well engineered and thought out. I've had previous bezels on different brands and different watches, similar price to this, and they really fluctuate in quality, but Steeldive have got consistently better. I had a few dodgy ones a while back, and they felt either too light or a bit gritty. But but they have massively upped their game, and I think this is the best fit and finish Steeldive I've seen yet. Here we are. And I think that is a really good sign of them listening to the customers. They know they've got a good selling range of watches, so they want their watches to still sell well and gain that reputation which they are building. And obviously the watches aren't perfect like no other watches, and I will always be honest, and I have got that coming. I will discuss the pros and the cons of this watch, but that's coming up very shortly. So before I move on to the Lume, I'm just going to recap, because I've discussed what everything's made of, the stats, the specs, dimensions, the weights, the bezel action, how many clicks, the crown, everything. I've been very thorough. I discussed the rubber strap. So now you're going to get to see the things you can't see under a bright studio light. So let's show you that Lume. Now it always pops when you first charge it with a UV light, but this really is good. It's strong. It's fairly consistent. I mean, the bezel insert is ever so slightly brighter and stronger than the dial in the hands, but I would be very happy with that, especially at this price point. I know it's a fad, it's a novelty, but it's a fun thing to have, and if you're going to do it properly, and they have, which is very, very good. So we're near the end of this video, guys. We're going to do the likes, dislikes, and final conclusion. So my likes: the fit and the finish is exceptional. It really is. I can't find any quality control issues. There was no imperfections anywhere. There's no poor brushing. There was no sharp edges anywhere. Even here, it's not sharp here, which often is. That's not how I cut my thumb. Everything's been honed really well. There was no fluff under the glass, the crystal. Just gonna give it a quick buff. There was no fluff under there. Everything lines up. It really is. It really is impressive. It's a joy to get these kind of good value for money watches in, because you almost feel guilty criticizing them at all, because they're so cheap. You know, they're really good value, but they're not cheap in feel. It really is. They really know how to make a good, well finished timepiece. I know there's no originality in the design. We know what this is paying homage to, and you know that's a given. But if you don't have to spend the time and the effort designing the watch, it's great that you can spend all the time and the effort on getting all the other bits right, and that is the tactile aspects, and that's what they've done well, you know, so well here. And the specification, like I said, the Seiko movement, the ceramic and sapphire, they're all stainless steel, and yeah, the Lume again, yeah, it's fantastic. AR coating, it ticks all the boxes. Now we move on to the negatives. The first one is this strap. It's not really in keeping with this watch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on one of my straps, show you what I'm talking about. And here it is on one of my Fluoro FKM Tropic rubbers. Now I sell these on the store, and I've carefully chosen these because I did some samples before and I checked them over, and I'm now stocked right up because I'm so happy with these. These are very good quality, as you'd expect, because of the premium grade of rubber they're made of. And what you're getting is this gorgeous vintage design with the lovely raised edges. It's thinner, it's softer, it's so supple. This is incredibly strong, and it's more in keeping with the design of a watch of this era. This is the straps. Originally it came with proper genuine rubber, but modern rubbers have been improved to be stronger, or you can get synthesized rubber such as FKM or Fluoro or this or silicone, things like that. This effectively is a way of you getting the look with the contemporary aspects. It's like exactly the same as the watch. It looks like a watch from the 50s, yet it was made very recently with a modern movement, massively upgraded Lume. And then why not treat it to a strap that's appropriate for that design? So that was one way I've rectified one of my dislikes. I'm not just picked out that strap as a dislike so I could flog my straps. I genuinely have given reason as to why this is more appropriate, because it's a strap from that era, and this watch is from that era. It's not rocket science. So that's that dislike. I don't like this logo. I know a lot of people do like it and a lot of people don't, but I just think it's a little bit fussy and a bit complicated for when you shrink it down in size. God, my thumb looks terrible. Then the polished aspects is another thing I really don't get on with on this watch, especially underneath. I don't think you should ever have polishing underneath a watch, because that just gets scratched so much. When you're wearing the watch, bits get under there so easily, just debris of day-to-day life, and it's like sandpaper. And then the sides, they're so heavily polished. I think they're almost like mirrors. They're so deep. Just that side, that part of the case alone. Let's try and get an accurate. It's nearly 9mm just for that polished side of the watch. I like my watches to be not much thicker than just that, with everything included. I think because this is of this vintage style design, it doesn't have the crown guards, which help break up this kind of slab-sidedness, but I think it's just too thick. That's what I'm moving on to next. The point I'm making is with the polished sides, it's just really thick watch, and with the fact it's on a rubber strap, it feels a bit top heavy on the wrist. But I'll put it back on the wrist. It does still feel comfortable, don't get me wrong. It doesn't feel too bad, but it is quite top heavy. You definitely notice it on the wrist, but what a handsome beastie. So conclusion, guys, this is a handsome watch with an amazing set of specs and stats, and it does everything you want it to be. It's got that vintage look, and the few negatives are, like I've said, you may not get them with the logo. UK Steeldive don't supply the sterile version. I really understand why, because pushing the brand, supporting the brand, you want to have it on the watch. I don't like the polished sides, but that's something you could live with because you don't always see the sides of your watch. The front bit of the watch is beautiful, and it wouldn't take much for you to really upgrade this watch to take it to the next level by changing the strap out, which in comparison, this is, it's just taste. I mean, this is just my opinion, guys. I'm really passionate about straps, as you can imagine, setting up my own business selling them. So I know what to look for, and I know why I would justify changing out this to something better. And it doesn't take much to improve this watch. So overall, I'm really impressed, really happy with it. And I really hope you've enjoyed this review, and I'm sad to see it go. I'm going to send this back to Steeldive UK with great thanks. I look forward to seeing the next one. And I also look forward to sharing another watch with you in the near future, guys. So, bye for now.